Hey YouTube, thanks so much for joining me again at the roundtable. We are going to continue the conversation about LinkedIn profiles. We're going to discuss the experience section, and then we're going to talk about some of the other features on LinkedIn that aren't widely used, but are very important to have on your profile. So pull up a chair, relax, let's kick this thing off. So we're going to talk about the experience section and how to structure your experience section to make sure that you're getting the most out of every last character that's available to you. My example that I have pulled up right here, system administrator, network administrator, project manager, just a very quick synopsis. Hey, this is what I do. These are some of the things that I'm responsible for. After that, we're gonna get into what tools, software, anything that I might have used during that position, add those in. Now, like we've talked about before, you need to make sure to tailor your experience section to match the industry you're in. If you use a specific tool and it's commonly used throughout the entirety of your industry, make sure to add it. If it is something that's very niche, some very specific, a specific software, make sure that's added, especially if you're trying to target a specific company. So it takes a lot of effort, a lot of work for you to get this piece done. A lot of research using LinkedIn search feature to look at those different jobs. But I guarantee it's going to be worth it because this is how recruiters and hiring managers find you, because the experience section is one of the areas where you can be found. Now, when you're adding a brand new experience, you want to make sure and highlight a couple of big things. One, obviously, is going to be the title. That is going to be one of the easiest ways for someone to find you. Again, we've hit on this and we've hammered on it in all of my previous videos. Make sure it is general, but it speaks to your industry. For this one, chapter director for Washington State. After that, employment type. Now, your employment type can be all different types. The list can go on. Make sure you're selecting the right one. After that, company name. I know we've talked about this before. Make sure you are using your company's logo. Now, again, if your company is small, it may not have a company page, in which case you just got to do your best. Make sure and tag the company in its full name in this section. The other thing that I wanted to highlight here is display the in for. Now, this job in particular, LinkedIn did help me find this job. Next, location. Now, location is going to be important to you because if someone is trying to find you, mainly a recruiter and hiring manager, they are going to look generally in the area that they want to hire in. This is important. My example, this position is in the greater Seattle area. Make sure you're using your metropolitan name. After that, location. Location's awesome. LinkedIn has updated it to make sure that it provides both on-site, hybrid, and remote. After that, little checkbox. Do you work in this position? Now, if you're just starting out your LinkedIn profile, this is going to be one of the ones where you either check the box or you don't check the box. Now, forewarning, at the very top of this, and I didn't mention this until now for a reason, you have this Notify Network button. Now, this Notify Network button is an automatic post. That means as soon as you're done editing this experience and saving it, it will do an auto-generated post to your profile. If you don't want that to go across, you've got to deselect it first. My recommendation, whenever you're going through, you're building out your profile for the very first time, I recommend turning all of these off. Otherwise, what's going to end up happening is if you have several years of experience, you will end up putting out 7-8 posts in a single day instead of trying to space them out. After that, now we get into some of the meat of what the experience section can do for you. First off is industry. Now, industry, they're typically set in stone as far as what industry LinkedIn uses. So you kind of have to go with the flow for this one. If you're doing technology, information, internet, it all lumps all of those together, even though I may want to post about cybersecurity. So after that, the description. Now, I mentioned it right at the very beginning here. The description should almost be like an elevator pitch right at the very beginning. And the reason for that is because you want to get as much attention from the recruiter and hiring manager as you possibly can. They don't have a whole lot of time. You've got to be able to sell them your position in a very short amount of time. And you want to hit on some of the key highlights. After you've done that, then you start moving into the different tools and technologies like we've already discussed. Did you use a ticketing system? So for all my IT folks out there, maybe you got a free version of Jira, you started using it in your home lab, and you want to highlight that you have experience in ticketing systems. After that, it gives you an option here to change your profile headline. This is nice because whenever you're adding a new experience, instead of you having to close out of this, go into the top section of your profile, change your headline, it gives you the option to do it right here, which is nice. After that, skills. Now, the thing about skills, when I look at the LinkedIn experience section and how to build it, it's not user-friendly. I'm not gonna lie to you. It is kind of a pain to go through and update, but it's gonna be worth it to you. The reason why it's a pain is because the experience section here doesn't give you an option to go through and select, checkbox, the skills that you already have defined for the 50 total skills you can have. We're gonna talk about that here in just a moment. So what you end up having to do is you have to go down to your skills section, you have to select the skill, then it gives you the option to add the skill to your experiences. Make sure the skills are important to the industry. Make sure they're important to that job description. We're going to talk about that here in just a moment though. After that, media. So the cool thing about your experience is you can add different types of media to your experience. This could be anything from a post, it could be a news article, it could be an external link. Anything you want to add, it will allow you to add in. Now, there are some different file type restrictions when it comes to this, but there is a link here for you to select to see what type of file link extensions you can add and what you cannot add. So play around with it, see what works for you. It's always great to have things like that because essentially all it does is add validation to that experience, which is always great to see. That, and it's eye-catching as well. If you were to go through someone's experience and all you see is a wall of text, it's not very appealing. But if there's a picture in there, that generally stops most people in their tracks because they want to see what that picture is. What is it for? Is it something special? So there's the experience section in a nutshell. Let's move on to skills. So your skills, this is where you get to highlight a couple of things for your profile. And this is one of those searchable fields on LinkedIn, so you really need to make sure and pay attention to what you're adding. Now, you can have a total of 50 skills for your profile, and that is it. So make sure you're selecting the ones that matter the most. How you do that? A couple different ways. One, you can go to LinkedIn search the job description you're trying to get into, find what the most common skills are across all of the applicants that have applied, and then select the skills from that grouping. That's a great way to do it because typically most of the people that are in your industry that are applying for the same types of jobs are all going to have similar skill sets, which means you can go and kind of just cheat and figure out a way to add those skills onto your profile to make you look like the best candidate as well. Now, caveat to this. When people apply to jobs on LinkedIn, it is going to show their skills, not necessarily the skills for the position. So make sure you're taking a look at it, and if it's just a completely out in left field, don't add them. Go to the job description. The job description will typically have a listing of required things for you to have that you can add into your profile, which will make you more appealing to that recruiter and hiring manager, right? Now, once you've added all your 50 skills, now we need to put them in a priority order. The way LinkedIn does their system now is it works off of a tree, top to bottom, 1 through 50. But it's not all that it does. What we're going to do is we're going to take a look at how it's broken down. So here, we have the skills, and now I have gone into my specific skills, and you can see that there's 4 different categories that you can select. You have an all, industry knowledge, tools and technologies, and interpersonal skills. Now, each one of these will have its own 1, 2, and 3 listed. LinkedIn doesn't make it easy for you. When I go into my industry knowledge, it's going to show my top 1, 2, and 3 because I set it up that way. When I go into tools and technologies, again, I have it set up for my 1, 2, and 3. Personal skills is the same way. Now, Here's the weird part. If I were to go and alter these, I go into the little three dots here, reorder, you will see that my 1, 2, and 3 for my industry knowledge match. Those are great. After that, now it starts to look a little weird because it doesn't tell you, LinkedIn doesn't tell you that this particular skill falls within this particular category. So you kind of got to play around with it. Make sure you're taking a look at your skills, and essentially it's trial and error. You have to reorder the ones that you want, that you think are in the right industry, save it, refresh the page, go to the individual drop down and take a look at that list and make sure it speaks the right way. Now, after a little bit of trial and error, I say this took me about 5-10 minutes to do to try and figure out exactly which ones were my top 1, 2, and 3 for the individual categories, but it'll pay dividends. And the reason why is because now there's no guessing game. I know for a fact my number 1, 2, and 3 skills that are available in my profile will show up. And if someone who is interested enough in me, if they want to see what my top 1, 2, and 3 interpersonal skills are, they will see the top 3 that I have. All right, that's going to cover it for the skills. Let's shift focus to all of the other cool things about LinkedIn. All right, so now we're looking at all the other things that a LinkedIn profile has to offer for you. Now, this is the desktop version. When you look at the mobile version is going to be a little bit different, but I use the desktop because it is the easiest to manipulate. What you're going to do, go to your own profile, scroll down a little bit, and you're going to see this little banner that pops up. You're going to add a profile section, and it's going to bring up this little pop-up window. Now, this pop-up window is broken down into 3 different main areas. You have core, recommended, and additional. Under core, those are going to be the big things: education, position, and career break. We kind of talked about that in the previous section. Recommended are all of the other things. Now, these are going to be great to have and great to add to your profile because these are some of the things that recruiters and hiring managers are going to be looking for. The problem is they are not searchable fields. So you're going to put some work and effort into it, and it'll really be on the hiring manager and recruiter that is skimming your profile to recognize these. But under here, you have a featured section. Featured section is great, especially for content creators that are out there on LinkedIn. It gives you an opportunity to highlight posts or articles that you've done. Maybe you did a video on LinkedIn or a LinkedIn Live audio event that you want to highlight in your featured section. You have licenses and certifications. We've talked about that before in the past. This is where you get to add in all of those licenses, certifications you've achieved. Courses. And finally, recommendations. Recommendations are great. And the reason why I love recommendations is it's an outside opinion of you that is given by someone else. Now, you can request a recommendation or you can give recommendations. Always great to have on a profile because then it gives the hiring manager and the recruiter that sense of, hey, someone else thinks this about person. This is great information to have. Finally, you have additional. Now, when you look at additional, this is all the extra stuff, but some of these areas are going to be really important to have. Volunteer experience, publications, patents, projects, honors, awards. The list kind of goes on until you get to the end, but the big ones that I want to highlight here are going to be volunteer experience, projects. The reason why I highlight those two is because most people will have some type of volunteer work that they do. The reason why I really want to focus on projects is especially for my IT and cybersecurity and project management people that are out there. You have the ability to add in any projects that you have worked on yourself, whether that is a home lab. Maybe you built your own hacking machine using Kali Linux. Maybe you've done projects for your local community, or you've done stuff around the house where you had to budget and build an entire project out from scratch using some type of methodology, whether that's agile or waterfall, and you get to add those things to your profile. All right, the last piece I'm going to talk about is going to be interests. Now, interests is kind of one of those weird ones on LinkedIn. It's not really talked about a whole lot, and you don't even realize you're doing it whenever you're going through and scrolling through your LinkedIn page. But this actually plays a huge part in what is shown in your news feed, as well as how you look for recruiters. Now, whenever I do mentoring, the one thing that I always tell people to do is whenever you're going through and you're looking at potential job companies and you're looking at those skills, make sure to follow that company. Here's the reason why. recruiters on their recruiter page have this little thing that says, hey, does this person follow my company or not? That is a very quick and easy way for you to stand out above the rest of the pack. By following their company, one, now recruiters can see that you are following them. Two, you start seeing their posts in your news feed. This is how you can see what you have followed. You go down here, you go to interests, they have different companies. You can see here, I have all of the different companies that I've gone through and followed. Groups, different types of groups that you're following. And then of course, any educational, higher education facilities that you're following. This also shows up. Go down, Google. All right, that's gonna cover it for the LinkedIn profile, top to bottom, but we're not done yet. We are still going to talk about how to do personalized invites. We're gonna talk about strategies that you can use to connect with people. And we're also going to talk about that job search that I've been mentioning throughout all of these videos. We're going to go through an entire demonstration of how to do it. So, thanks so much for joining me at the table. Can't wait to have you come back.